Travis Kelce is without a doubt the best tight end in the NFL, but that does not make him a good first round pick for fantasy football players. Let's break it down with SI senior fantasy analyst Michael Fabiano. And Fabs, we're not saying that Kelce's not productive. We're not saying he's not the best tight end in the league, but we are saying that drafting him in the first round may not be the best strategy or the best approach when it comes to being on the clock.
Kelce's great. He's been the number one tight end in fantasy football 5 straight seasons. So there's nothing negative to say here. But I am not of the opinion that a tight end is ever worth a first-round pick, even a guy as great as Kelce. And I think that movement has really come as a result of last year, where he put up the second best season of all time based on fantasy points among tight ends. Only Rob Gronkowski has had a better season statistically than Travis Kelce. And maybe a little bit of regression will come from Kelce. Maybe that's blasphemous to say, but it's possible.
Yeah, Kelce had 1,416 yards. That was a career high. You also had 11 touchdowns. That was a career high as well. So it certainly seems like, based on last year's stats, some fantasy managers, they're just getting too caught up in that hype of what they saw from last year and projecting it onto him for this season.
Right, exactly. And again, as I mentioned, top tight end, 5 straight seasons. In that time, he's averaged 13.9 fantasy points per game or more. He's averaged more than 18 points per game twice. Pretty good. He also holds, 5 of the top 9 fantasy performances in a single season over the last several years. He has been unbelievably good. I think there's 2 things to be concerned about with Kelce, and maybe not concerned, but I would suggest that you need to at least factor this into deciding to take him in the first round. Number one, he's entering his age 32 season. He's going to turn 32 in October. That's an age that hasn't been kind to tight ends. Tony Gonzalez is the only tight end in the Super Bowl era to score more than 188 fantasy points in his age 32 season. Now, I get it. Kelce is just as good as Gonzalez, right? Maybe better. Understand that this is just the trend, right? Just 2 other tight ends in their age 32 season, Delaney Walker and Mickey Schuler. Remember him from the Jets back in the 80s? Only 2 of those guys, 180 or more points in a single season in their age 32 year. Now, we can also look at the fact that Kelce is entering his 9th season in the National Football League. In the last 30 years, just 3 tight ends have scored more than 200 fantasy points in their 9th year. Greg Olsen in 2015, Jason Witten in 2011, Shannon Sharp in 1998. 2 others, Antonio Gates in 2011 and Gonzalez in 2005, scored over 180 points. Am I saying that Travis Kelce is going to fail to score over 200 points? No, I'm not saying that. What I'm saying, folks, is that regression could be coming. He had a career season in 2020, and he had a bananas good season. And based on the trends of 32-year-old tight ends and tight ends coming into their 9th season, well, maybe Kelce's numbers will be very good, but not worthy of a top 12 pick.
All right, so I'm going to put you on the spot here. Not worthy of a top 12 pick. Is he worthy of a pick in the 2nd round?
I wouldn't do it because I just don't want to draft tight ends that high, but I do think he is at worst a middle of the 2nd round pick. And I haven't seen him go much later than that drafts. One other thing to keep in mind, 2020 was amazing, right? Darren Waller had an awesome season as well. He averaged over 17 points per game. George Kittle was also pretty good too. Keep that in mind, although he missed half the season. Now in 2019, which was a very good season for Kelce, but not so amazing as in 2020, he averaged the same number of fantasy points as Kittle at 15.9. Austin Hooper, Zach Ertz, Mark Andrews, Waller, and Evan Engram were all within 2 points of what Kelce and Kittle put up. And I think that's going to be a closer reflection of what we're going to see in 2021 as opposed to 2020. What does that mean? Well, Kelce will still be good, but I'd rather get a guy who is going to be more of a bargain at the position, right? Waller's probably not going to be much more of a bargain. He's a 2nd rounder. You can probably get George Kittle in the 3rd round, but maybe a player like Kyle Pitts emerges, right? Maybe TJ Hawkinson emerges even further than he did last season because the Lions don't have many pass catchers in that offense. Maybe we can see more great things from Dallas Goedert if the Philadelphia Eagles deal Zach Ertz. Time will tell. I just think that as great as Kelce is, I would rather go after a tight end somewhere in the 6th or 7th round where I can get some value for him, as opposed to a guy who I'm going after hoping that he can reach a ceiling that may not be attainable in back-to-back seasons. Once again, great player. He's going to go in the Fantasy Hall of Fame. He'll probably go in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. But at some point, regression is coming. A decline in statistics is inevitable. And maybe it's going to be this season. We'll see.
All right, we got plenty more fantasy football analysis to help you dominate your draft. It's all up on Sports Illustrated. Go to si.com/fantasy and let us help you start winning.